Introducing this year's most sought-after rookie, the M&T Bank Jets debit card. This superstar is sure to be charging through checkout lines all season long.
Hey, Jets fans, you got to get your hands on the M&T Jets debit card. Rush into any M&T Bank branch today or learn more by clicking the banner. M&T Bank, the official community bank of your New York Jets. Offers subject to change and certain restrictions, conditions, and fees may apply. Member FDIC.
Hello, welcome to Stranger Things with Jay, Jack, and Mike. My name is Jay.
My name is Mike.
And I'm Nancy, and when I have sex, people die.
And welcome to the show. Whose death are you attributing to Nancy? Having sex?
Every time we see her having sex on screen, someone dies. You had the 5 people that were ambushed at the end when Will...
You can't blame that on her.
Yeah.
That is
I'm not, how do we know it's not Nancy's fault?
Oh, you think like Nancy has some sort of cursed sexual drive, and that every time she decides to exercise that libido, death comes a coming?
I'm just pointing out the fact.
You know what? Listen, I can give you Barb's death, okay, but some random red shirts getting killed in the tunnels. I don't think you can attribute that to.
How many people have died on this show? How many episodes have there been? 15, 16, 17, whatever it is.
Sure.
Yeah, we're talking through the 13th and 14th episodes today.
Okay. Nancy, we've seen her have sex twice, or we've
Sure.
And twice people have died. I'm just saying.
No,
I don't know if I like this correlation causality stuff, Jack.
I'm just pointing.
I'm not going to let you sex shame Nancy, okay?
Yeah, it's her choice.
Yes.
It's her choice, and people die.
Jeez. Well, on that happy note, welcome everybody to Stranger Things. We have 2 new chapters to talk about today, 5 and 6. We are in the thick of it in these Stranger Things episodes. And Mike and Jack, how's it been for you guys?
I mean, I'm been in the same boat in that I've kept watching 2 episodes of Stranger Things every week for the past 2 months at this point. I will say, and for the non-binging personality that I am, when we reached the end of episode 6, I was saying, I want to watch the next one.
It was tough.
I'm willing to break habit just because it ends on such an interesting cliffhanger. And yeah, we sort of get an interesting sort of mini arc contained within this episode, or at least a progression of the plot, where I think in the previews we saw a lot of stuff with people wearing scrubs or people in a hospital. Yeah. That's why we assumed that Bob was going to be a doctor at first. But it seems like we're finally building to that point, and it seems like all of these disparate threads, much like season 1, are finally starting to come together once more.
Yeah, for sure. It's same feelings here. It's like, oh, okay, now this is all, this. Assuming maybe this is where ish is going to happen, especially with the way that the cliffhanger ended. It's definitely a tough cliffhanger. I don't know about for you, if Angela, did she watch the whole thing? Because Colleen watched the whole thing. She
watched the whole thing. I tried to best to avert my gaze as she was watching the next thing, but yeah, she basically was of that mentality of I can't just watch one. Once you pop, the fun don't stop. It really is like the Pringles of television at this point. So she watched them all pretty much the weekend that they came out, including all the post-show content too.
Is she watching it again with you? Or is she totally abstaining? So she's watching it again with you.
Which is great because she'll warn me, for example, when I see Steve walking to the basement and I avert my gaze, she'll say, "Oh, no, don't worry. Nothing scary happens here. Nothing pops out. You're good."
And that's
spoiler alert.
Well, that's a good indicator of how good your marriage is, because if I was in the same shoes, I would have misled you to think it's going to be okay and then have the scare come in.
Wow.
To be fair, I would have done the same thing. It's more fun that way.
I'm happy I didn't get to go to that premiere party, because then you were just oh, don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen.
This is a non-scary season. That's what the
It's okay.
reviewers are
It's
saying.
okay. It's okay. Nancy doesn't have sex in this episode. You're okay.
Quit it. Quit shaming her. Nancy, you're okay. Have sex as much as you want to. The deaths are unrelated.
Your dad's not going to know. That's for sure.
That's a very Murray-like take of yours, Jack. Like, ooh, it's all connected. Draw the pieces of yarn from Nancy's genitals to the death bodies.
Well, I like to drink like Murray does and stuff. So, it is what it is. I will say this though. This has been tough. I mean, I can't, like you guys have said. I hate. We finish this. I go. Oh,
This is a tough one to end on for sure.
What if I cheat? Who would know? I go. I would know. I don't do it, and it's with the internet today, it's different than it was like 30 years ago. I mean, well, they didn't have binge shows, but you have to avoid things on you're on Twitter. You go, oh wait, someone's talking about it, or Facebook, someone's talking about it, or just whatever it is. It's tough, and I can't wait for this podcast to end so I can watch these 2 episodes.
Well, we will enjoy talking about the episodes that we have right now to talk about, and Jack can then just run and watch episode 7 right after we finish recording. So, Jack, for you, the cliffhanger is not too much longer.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Well, gentlemen, are you ready to get into this recap? We have some listener feedback today. We got 2 awesome episodes to talk about. So what do you say we jump into it?
All right.
All right, here we go. So first episode, Dig Dug. Dig Dug getting a big comeback here from this series, I feel, because who's talked about
can we take a brief dalliance to talk about your recently acquired arcade machine, considering that we go back to the arcade in this episode as well?
Yes, I bought a Tron arcade cabinet. It may have slightly been inspired by Stranger Things. Just get me in the nostalgia feel.
Why did you buy Dig Dug?
Because I don't like Dig Dug. Tron's one of my favorite games.
No,
so.
Jay went to the store and Dig Dug had an out of order sign on it, and he didn't realize that someone wanted to talk to him in the back to tell him all the big Stranger Things spoilers, and he ignored that warning.
Well, now that it's featured on Stranger Things, it's a hot arcade cabinet. The prices on it just like skyrocket on the Evil base. So it's tough to get your hands on a Dig Dug at the moment.
Has it really gone up that much?
Oh, I have no idea. I know the
Fake
little the Demogorgon piece, the Dungeons and Dragons from first season 1, it was like a worthless maybe $1, $2, and now the original ones are hundreds of dollars if you want to get one of those. And you can't even find them.
So we should have planned this out ahead and bought thousands of them.
Well, the thing is, like they got hot the second it dropped on Netflix, so. It's not like we had any warning or insider trading that we could have done.
Well, I'm just going to say the writers from season 3, if you can give us kind of heads up what you're planning, so I can make some purchases.
That is definitely insider trading.
I won't tell.
Yeah, because you can find they have like recasts of the original cast. Those are like $50 a piece, and again, it's a little thing, maybe an inch or 2 tall. That's what she said.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say that because...
Yeah, you've done too much sex talk already, Jack. You
exactly.
take your quota.
Wait, Jack, if I have a sexual innuendo, does that mean people are going to die? Is it a correlation?
I didn't want to do it because I already dug myself a hole. So
Oh, man. All right, can't top that. Let's jump into this quick cap, then we'll get to our top moments for Dig Dug. Hopper becomes trapped in the tunnels and passes out. Will has a vision of Hopper's state, but Joyce cannot figure out its meaning, and she recruits Bob to help. He identifies the network as a map under Hawkins and where Hopper was trapped. Nancy and Jonathan visit local conspiracy theorist Murray for help. Murray knows the public will not accept their story as is, but suggests watering down the story to make it more believable. To blame Barb's death on toxins from the lab. Lucas privately reveals the events of last year to Max to gain her respect, but she doesn't believe him. Dustin traps Dart in the basement, and he gets Steve to help recapture it. 11 leaves to find Terry Ives, who is catatonic and cared for her by her sister. 11 is able to communicate with Terry, gaining her memories of trying to rescue her at Hawkins' lab before she was subject to an intentional, severely brain-damaging dose of shock therapy. 11 finds there was another girl trained like her. Joyce, Bob, and Will and Mike are able to rescue Hopper. The lab personnel soon arrive and set tunnels on fire, causing Will to collapse in agony. And freakily at that. The top moments. Number 1, Hopper is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was just like, dude, he's going to die. What are you doing? First, just going down there without any backup. And then also just the looking at the weird pustule thing that spits out toxins or whatever it is. I'm just like, you're a dummy.
Well, he did try to get out.
I mean, yeah, but as Jay mentioned, I don't know, this is where his decision to not tell anyone anything and try to play courier and run between all these pieces of information without actually revealing anything definitely came home to roost a bit, just because nobody knew where the hell he was. Joyce had to go through context clues of what he muttered as he rushed out of the house. And had she not heard that, he would definitely be dead. Though that also means that maybe the vines would be burned up. Maybe this would connect back to Will. Maybe things would be in a different place. But yeah, I mean, Hopper definitely screwed himself here by being so secretive about everything from the past year.
Yeah. And it was he's like, all he said was vines. That's all she had to go. So I think Joyce is the true hero here. And number 2, Bob the Brain to the rescue. How awesome is Bob? Jack, your theory last week that he's a secret spy. Can we put it to rest these 2 episodes? I think Bob has proven his valor here.
Yeah, Bob knows exactly come on. Bob knew what was going on.
It's Lover's
We're
Lake.
supposed to be... Yeah, okay, all right. You guys want to stick with Bob's the good guy? That's fine with me.
I want to stick with Bob the good guy because the show is showing me that Bob's the good guy. I'm not expecting a sort of Disney-esque twist at the end where it turns out that he was the villain all along.
Last season, Hopper was the smart guy. Now he's the stupid guy. I mean, so I'm sticking with Bob's the bad guy. I got 3 more episodes, right?
Yes, 3 more.
Okay.
But I love this. I was worried for a while that Bob would just be like, oh, we're bringing Sean Astin for this, but he's going to be very innocuous to everything. He's not going to get involved. I'm happy that I don't know how much he got explained to him off camera, but I'm happy that he's at least involved in some of this stuff and how he unintentionally just sort of unlocked this solution by just being a master at figuring out maps and riddles and all that jazz.
Yes. Awesome. I mean, who doesn't love Sean Astin? But a couple cool things here. When they mark the X, he's like, "What's there? Pirate treasure?" So cool call out to Goonies, which Colleen saw for the first time this weekend. And then another thing, the Duffer Brothers they were born and raised in Durham, North Carolina, which is right near us here at Jay and Jack Studios, and that he references Jordan Lake, which is an actual lake in Durham. So
it is.
A couple other things were referenced to where they grew up, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, I love these 2 episodes. If I liked Bob before, I loved him in these 2, just because he's such a sweet, good character.
The one thing I will say about these characters that are really interesting as well, between Bob and Max, who I think Jack still has as sleeper cell KGB agents at this point, is the fact that they both take this news very well. And again, I don't know what capacity each of them have received this news, since again these explanations happened off camera, but I feel like any quote unquote normal person would be like, would basically react the way Murray thinks the entire community is going to react to this type of stuff. They say you're crazy, this isn't real, I'm just going to ignore you. But both of them seem to be very much like, okay, all right, this is a thing, great, all right, I'll help out however I can, which again is atypical, but for a plot standpoint, I'm happy. I'm glad we again.
And it wasn't like they just took it without any questioning, because Bob said I don't know if this is a good idea. Will looks sick. He should go to the doctor. But then he trusts Joyce and kind of follows along as best he can. And then for Max, hilariously, we'll get to that after the Murray section. But
didn't Joyce say I have to save my real boyfriend?
Ooh.
Did she?
No.
Tell Bob that?
There was this really weird moment where I guess it was episode 6, right, where it was Hopper, Joyce, and Bob, where it was Joyce and Hopper were looking at each other, and then Bob's like, "Oh, hey Jim," he's like, "Oh yeah, hi Bob," which
I thought it was great acting by Sean Astin, because
it was the end. It was the end of season 5. Oh, not season 5. Sorry, episode 5, when they save him, and then they're I think it's Joyce and Hopper are embracing. And then Hopper goes, "Oh, hey, Bob." Hey, Jim.
And Bob, hey, Jim. But it was he felt like that it was great acting, because it looked like he was uncomfortable with the whole scene.
It was funny. It was good. Number 3, Nancy and Jonathan meet with Murray. What's the thoughts here with the Murray character? Out of the new characters in this one, What did you think of the Murray kind of arc here over these 2 episodes?
I mean, it's bringing some comedy to it in terms of that tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I don't know. I can understand why it's there. I was actually a little surprised. I thought that Nancy and Jonathan's mission was, okay, we're going to go get the tape recording. I was a little surprised that they, spent the night at a hotel and were obviously going somewhere else. It turns out they were going to make multiple stops while they were sort of under the guise of going to sleepovers. But I'm still trying to figure it out because I don't know if I necessarily loved this plot. It feels like it's once again too separated from everything else going on. It seems like all the other characters are kind of in the mix with what's going on in Hawkins proper, especially in the 6th episode. And it still feels like Nancy and Jonathan are kind of out on a limb. But if it brings us moments like it does in episode 6 that I'm sure we're going to talk about, I guess it's worth it.
Yeah. It's definitely it's interesting because you would think if they have to do this for 5 seasons, they kind of have to branch outside of just the specific places that we had in season 1, because we had that opening scene of this season that was in Pittsburgh with did we get a number for her? I can't remember now.
8.
8. Yes, 8. And we have it later, but we assume that's the other girl that's in the Rainbow Room, I would guess. But so I would assume that the world has to expand. But I could see it being risky, just the way fans can be. They may not like it expanding out of Hawkins, but who knows?
Well, do we know if this took place in Hawkins? How big is Hawkins, by the way?
It's very big. It seemed like it was a bit out of town, but maybe not necessarily. Like could have still been Hawkins, but this whole story definitely felt like out, like a new territory that it hasn't been in before. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was going to say, if they've been bopping around Hawkins between going to the lab and all this stuff, what do you think the chances are that like their parents would be out driving around and just like, if Joyce is driving to go find Hopper and she passes by Jonathan and Nancy, I feel like in a small town that's more likely to happen than not, right?
Yeah, totally.
But it's more rural, I think. I think the houses are spread out. Everything.
That's true.
It's not like Raleigh, where a big city, but everything's crammed together. So
yeah. We'll have to see how that plays out over time. Number 4, Lucas spills the beans to Max, and Max thinks it's just a story. She says, it's a little derivative, but it was fun. I thought that was a nice little call out to
whatever, stalker.
But I thought it was a nice meta moment, kind of acknowledging maybe some of the criticisms that people have had against Stranger Things over time.
Yeah, not enough originality. What are you guys thinking about the Lucas and Max quote-unquote relationship, which I definitely think gets developed in these 2 episodes, because I think in the beginning we were getting like the Lucas versus Dustin, but amidst all the Dart stuff that's going on, it seems like they're really going in hard on the Lucas and Max relationship.
I think it's fine. I know, Mike, you were against the 11 and Mike pairing, if you will, but I think it's okay. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I'm still kind of torn because I like the actors and I like the characters. I wonder if it's for me, it's just that I still don't know Max as a character yet. I know that she skateboards and she has a very odd home life. We're going to get next episode too, I guess, what living with Billy is like, where he's bench pressing while smoking a cigarette and blaring metal, which again, who knows where these parents are, because I believe that they said that like they moved there with their mother and stepfather. So they're nowhere to be seen unless like Billy murdered them and they're already buried under the house or something like Muse. But I just feel like I want to know Max more as a character, aside from just like, hey, she's a girl and she's pretty good at video games and now she's going to serve as a crush for some other boys in the group.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. In a season that only has 9 episodes and introducing this new character, is there enough time to get that?
Maybe if they have I feel like we got a couple of moments in episode 6, so I feel like we're creeping there. We're the little, demodogs putting our hands up on the cliffs, crawling out of the chasm of no character development, about to get over the edge. But I don't know, as you said, if there's enough episodes, and especially with so much going on, I don't know how much more Max development we're going to get. I still feel like her and Billy are sort of like, I don't know, two of the bigger, not necessarily mysteries, but like holes, I guess,
Yeah.
that are existing within the characters in this season so far. And I'm hopeful that we're gonna get more from them, but I'm realistic that there's a good chance we won't be, especially if things start building to a fever pitch, as is indicative at the end of the next episode.
And it's interesting because Bob is pretty much used in a similar way, but it's just because we already know Sean Astin and maybe connect with him that you, as a viewer, you can go in and you don't need as much because you kind of get him right away. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because I would agree there is this feeling that Max and Billy aren't as fleshed out of characters, or they haven't really done much with them aside from just being set pieces to play off the other characters. But Bob is in a similar way, but we connect more with Bob. Is there any correlation there in terms of the writing and how it's being used?
Bob's
I mean,
likable.
What?
I mean, it might just be a thing, yeah, as Jack said, that like I'm gonna say Bob's more likable, but I feel like even I don't know if it's a Sean Astin thing. I feel like we just get a good sense of who Bob is, and maybe it's because his character is a little more two-dimensional. Maybe it's just because they made better use of the economy of writing when it comes to, because I do agree that it seems like we've sort of seen all three of these characters in spurts, in fits and starts, but it feels like Bob was very specific in his characterization. Whereas now it's just like Billy is generic, sort of like sociopathic asshole, and Max is skateboard girl who is also pretty cool and wants to be part of the gang. You know, I just wonder if it's a matter of, because Bob's character is a little more, for lack of a better term, simple, and I don't mean that in the pejorative sense. I have mused about how much I love the character from day one in his simplicity. I wonder if it's because these characters are more complicated that they need to, usually you take more time to reveal who they are. Kind of like what happened with Steve, where Steve initially seemed two-dimensional and then he sort of gained some depth. Maybe we're waiting for that moment for the bottom to drop out for Max and Billy, but because of how the season's been going so far, there's a chance we might not get it.
Yep, that's fair. I think it's a good assessment. Number 5, Dustin enlists Steve to help with taking care of Dart. The whole Dustin and Dart storyline is I thought had a lot of fun moments. Probably the apex of it is the pairing up with Steve, but also him calling Mike's dad useless SOB.
Language.
Hilarious.
Language. I'm gonna tell you right now, if a kid did that to me, I know I would say a little more than language.
But it's perfect, though. I thought it was hilarious.
I also love. Go ahead, Jack.
I have a couple thoughts. Okay, you have Dustin, you have Billy, who's heavy metal, right? And Steve is more pop. When they're driving their car, so you have the two different personalities. I noticed that Steve was playing more mellow music, and Billy's all heavy metal music. Also, how far is it from Dustin's house to Mike's house? Because it was daylight when he left, and it was nighttime when they got to the back to his house.
In all fairness, it is fall, and we are currently in fall right now, and it's dark by it's bright at 4:58, and then pitch black at 5:05. So,
all right, I'll go with that.
And also, who knows? You know, Dustin decided to go directly to Mike's house. Maybe he also stopped by Lucas's, and he stopped by the Byers' residence as well. Maybe that was just the first stop of many. But I agree. I like him going over to the Wheeler's house, and not only calling out the dumb dad, but also like chastising Mrs. Wheeler for being on the phone for 2 hours. I forget what she was talking about.
It was to her friend gossiping about something, I think.
But you know, as the person who grew up in that, where there's no call waiting, and you had to call the operator and say, "Hey, I need an emergency break to my phone because my sisters would be on the phone forever." I remember those days, and it was frustrating.
That being said,
I do like the dad though. Do we know where our daughter is? Do we know where our son's at? That's just classic.
Haven't you heard they don't live here anymore?
Yeah, I like that line. That was like a nice, like, sarcastic line from Dad of like, yeah, I don't know any better, but at the same time, like, I can still be a wise ass about the fact that and also, again, a nice little lampshade about the fact that the children at this point are what, like, the last time they were home was probably, like 3 episodes ago at this point, maybe around Halloween. But, oh my God, can we talk about this Dustin and Steve pairing? I love it so much. And this is why I'm happy that, like, I was hesitant in the beginning of season 2 that we were going, oh, it's going to be kids off in one direction, teenagers off in another, and adults off into a third, like it was for the majority of season 1. But now we're really starting to get everything going. The slash fiction is basically writing itself. And I loved just like the sibling-esque relationship between Steve and Dustin. It gets built out more on the train tracks in the next episode, but such a random pairing, but such a fun grouping.
Yep, I agree. Like if I fell in love with Bob, I'm starting to fall in love with Steve in these 2 episodes because of that.
Steve I agree. Steve is much more likable this season than he was last season.
But here's the thing, though. We love Bob and we love Steve, but what's going to happen when the inevitability happens and Nancy gets with Jonathan and Joyce gets with Hopper? How do we feel about these 2 fan favorites getting cuckolded sooner rather than later?
Maybe
Steve will find someone else.
I'm kidding.
oh boy, that's I don't know if I want to. I know I said slash fiction beforehand, but I didn't mean that type of slash fiction. I don't know if there are any Bob Steve shippers out there.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
There's plenty. Well, if he's underage, but I think he's an adult. I don't know. Anyways, we're not going down there. There's plenty of fish in the sea for Bob and Steve if it doesn't work out for them. But
all right. I don't know.
But I will feel. I don't know if I feel bad for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
I think there's more for Steve than Bob.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'll feel bad for Bob. If it ends up that she gets with Hopper, I'm going to feel bad for Bob.
Because he's dating Joyce. Who would have thought he would ever date Joyce? Steve's like,
So, anyway. We get the story of Terry Ives, a truly tragic, heartbreaking story. 11 connects with her, and then Terry kind of shares, what happened. And we get more information, and we see that I'm blanking on his name now. Matthew Modine's character, Brenner. Dr. Brenner basically fried her mind.
So
just as she was
evil.
able to, getting back to her daughter.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about, because we got the whole breathe, sunflower, 3 to the left, 4 to the right, rainbow, 450. We got that muttered, I think, specifically in this episode, and then it paid off immediately by the end of it, which, again, I feel like in any other TV show, it would totally be like a save the cheerleader, save the world, where, it only makes sense several episodes from now. So I'm happy they addressed it, and this was just such a well-done sequence, too. I like this sort of blurriness on the memories to sort of not only signify that they're not in our real timeline, but the fact that they are sort of vague memories existing in this swirling pool of this poor woman's addled mind. But yeah, I thought this was a really interesting way to address both the Terry Ives character and refer to what happened, fill in some of the blanks as to how 11 got involved specifically with Hawkins' lab.
Yeah, and also, because Jack, I know you're a big Flashback fan, but it'd be really hard to get him, and it was a really creative way to go about it, and getting a backstory. Because I think when we were talking about season 1 and we saw Terry Ives, I think Mike, you called it out, saying, I don't think we'll go back to them. We don't really need to go back to them, and I think this justified it. We found out more information and got more backstory in a really unique way, which I thought was cool.
Now, the question is, will we go back to them again? Or do we feel like now we sort of – maybe I was delaying the end point by 1 season. But I do think it's interesting as well that, Terry Ives sort of has these – I don't know. I don't want to call them, dormant powers. But, I mean, she was able to make the lights flicker. Yeah. I wonder if either this season ends with, Terry Ives dying, or who knows, maybe Terry Ives can sort of become – I don't want. Why do I keep going back to Heroes? But when the Petrelli father, the Petrelli patriarch, came back at the beginning of Heroes season 3 and became the big bad. What if we're facing a situation where Terry Ives comes back and she's actually not too well, all things considered, with everything that happened to her, and then she suddenly becomes sort of an antagonist to her daughter who has the same amount of powers.
I think it's a great theory, and I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, they've shown it, they've hinted it. There's a lot of story left, and yeah, I don't see why, either good or bad, but I don't see why she couldn't come back to the story in some form or fashion. Jack, what do you think?
I think anything that takes us away from Heroes, the better.
Well, that's going to take us towards Heroes.
Going to it kind of ties right into the next top moment here. The other girl in the Rainbow Room 8. So that's the second reference to her. I assume we're gonna get more this season, or maybe it'll just then go into the next season. Who knows?
Well,
but there's more than just 11.
Isn't 8 older than 11 though?
We assume so, but
But
it could be maybe 3 or 4 years old. It doesn't have to be like 10 years older.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because I'm trying to remember as well, the flashback happened actually, around the same time period as the season started, right? It was October 28th, 1984. Episode 2 of this season was on Halloween 1984, so I guess it makes sense. I initially thought that, maybe this is a flash forward or something, but I don't know. Around that age, some girls mature faster than others. Who am I to judge? And maybe she has super age powers where she's Benjamin Buttoning it, and she looks much older even though she's the same age.
Well, actually, that's a good call out because her powers don't seem to be the same as 11. She made the cop see that bridge collapse when it actually didn't collapse, right?
So maybe the people with her see her as older?
Because maybe that's what she's projecting? I don't know.
Huh.
I think maybe she could be 4 years older or something, which it wouldn't, when they're kids, you probably wouldn't see as much, but 4 years older from, 13 to 17 is a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
You can, puberty, it's a thing. Anyway, number 8, Hopper is saved. We already talked about kind of the funny moment between Bob and Hopper. But yeah, is this a triangle or are we firmly in Bob and Joyce forever?
No, I don't think it's Bob and Joyce forever.
I wish it was, but I don't think it is. By the way, a really fun moment, very Indiana Jones-esque moment with Jim going back for his hat after he gets taken away before the guys come in to try to burn everything down.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. But I was wondering how come Bob was letting Joyce do all the heavy work in the beginning. Bob's just sitting there.
What do you mean?
Well, Joyce grabs the shovel and she's doing all the digging. Bob's like, "Oh, can we be doing this?"
Well, yeah, I think he's just like, "What's going on?"
He's also like, "This is somebody else's land." And again, a nice indicator for what's about to pay off literally in the next episode is they're basically going by the guidance of Will. Will's the one who literally made them turn off the road into this random patch of land and find them successfully. And it has its benefits and its drawbacks. We're about to see the latter at the end of next episode.
Yeah, for sure. They start to burn the growth or whatever, and then Will, it's disturbing. The scream that he has, it's very, what would you say, Exorcist-esque or just very possessed. It was creepy. It was disturbing.
Well, I think Mike, you said the last podcast what a great job this actor is doing. The character he's playing Will. He is amazing. I mean, it was uncomfortable watching him scream. So, yeah, good job.
Were you scared, Mike, as a resident scaredy cat?
No, I was more.
He was warned ahead of time.
And I was more I was warned ahead of time. There's gonna be a boy screaming at me. No, I guess I was more concerned, as Jack said. I think it made sense. Again, last podcast we really speculated about what this connection was going to be as a result of Will sort of deep-throating the Thessal Hydra in a manner of speaking.
All right, I didn't even go there.
Now I hit my quota now for sexual references. But we were wondering exactly what that was going to entail, and I think we're now starting to see that it's almost like a very Harry Potter Voldemort-like connection, where first it just started as they were tangentially connected, but now with him doing this, they see what the other person's seeing. They're working together. They're weaponizing each other. We'll talk about how that pays off at the very end of the podcast. I know that I spoke about this fact that maybe they even speak about it here. We're Will can be a spy, and sometimes they can be a reverse spy. And I think we saw both sides of it over the course of these 2 episodes. So I think it made sense. It was freaky to watch, but I think it just shows how that quickly the possession or whatever you want to call it, the connection between the two has just become so much stronger.
Yeah, and scarily so. If there is references to, pop culture class, I think we even talked about it, but if it is going to kind of go the Exorcist way. Because it definitely felt that way. He's possessed. It's even maybe it's even more so than the connection between Voldemort and Harry Potter. Because it seems he's possessed. He's not even really in control a lot of times. It seems like now he's just like a passenger, and the shadow monster is the driver.
It's interesting. I would almost compare it to the little girl in Poltergeist, like the "they're here" girl.
Yeah.
Where it's like I can understand what you're saying in terms of like bodily control, but I think it's also a matter of like he knows what's going on behind the scenes, and he's the only one that can see it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good call out. All right, well, let's jump into Chapter 6 and following up this disturbing ending to Chapter 5, The Spy. I think we know what we're talking about there. Will is rushed to the lab and demonstrates memory loss. Dr. Owen speculates that the shadow monster is like a virus in Will, which has spread to his brain, damaging the tunnels may be lethal to Will. Nancy and Jonathan spend the night at Murray's, where they admit their feelings for each other, then return to the Byers' home and discover Will's drawings. Dustin contacts Lucas, and the two, along with Max and Steve, attempt to trap Dart at the local junkyard. There, Max opens up to Lucas, explaining that Billy's attitude is a result of his father remarrying Max's mother, a situation Billy was unhappy with. The four find that Dart is but one of a pack of adolescent monsters, and they are trapped in a bus until the pack suddenly runs away. At the lab, Will discovers a location on his map that the monsters want to avoid, located near the lab. Owen sends a team to investigate, but it's a trap. The team is attacked by the adolescent monsters, who subsequently make their way into the lab itself. They realize that the monster has manipulated Will. Top moments. Will is infected with the shadow monster. We talked about it already. Any more things that we want to talk about in terms of this connection between Will and the shadow monster?
Yeah, what did you guys think about the virus analogy? I know that obviously Dr. Owens is coming from it from a medical perspective, and I think this sort of showed, I think we asked in the very first podcast we did of like, okay, is Dr. Owens really a doctor, or is that just a front for something? It does seem like he's actually a medical professional, but it's interesting the explanation that he gives. Again, it's less so about possession for him. It's more about like a viral infection where this time the pathogen is actually actively communicating with its host.
Yeah, I think from him, if he's a man of science, he's going to try and ground it in reality. And I think from that perspective, it makes sense. And especially the part about it kind of having a hive mind and connecting to multiple creatures. And it kind of makes, or it paints the shadow monster as kind of the big bad that was maybe even controlling the Demogorgon in season 1. And I think it does kind of paint an interesting context for the baddies in this show. I will also say, there was just this questioning of, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Based upon his character in Aliens is kind of the reference. And I honestly think he is trying to do his best with the situation. I'm not getting the vibe that he's a double agent. Jack, you may defer with me on that.
Actually, I was about ready to say. I said he after this episode, I think he is more, not necessarily a good guy, but he's more trying to do good.
Yeah,
he's trying to do the right thing here, whereas Brenner wasn't. Brenner obviously was a bad guy. You see, especially to see the flashback in the fifth episode. Yeah, I think he's trying to, because they're doing that round table, and the guys just say, "Hey, let the kid die. Who cares?" And he goes, and he wants to say, obviously he wants to save Will, and or maybe it's for a greater purpose. I don't know, but right now, I'm leaning toward he's necessarily not a great guy, but he's better than I thought he was.
Yeah, I think between this and 2 episodes ago, when he was sort of talking to Nancy and Jonathan about how, oh yeah, we want to do this so that it doesn't fall into enemy hands. I don't know. This might be me playing into it a little bit, but I personally think like this is where he's coming from. I don't think he's as smart as we're projecting him to be. I really don't think we're dealing with another Brenner who is playing 3D chess. I think we're dealing with a man who is very good at checkers and only checkers. He's not dealing with many higher levels. So I think it was honestly just like we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We had no nefarious purposes. And like you said, he seems to genuinely care about Will in particular. So I'm happy about that, especially compared to someone like Brenner, who, while he served his necessary part in terms of the plot, was definitely more of a caricature compared to what we see here. Agreed.
Number 2, Nancy and Jonathan get it on. Did you enjoy the pullout? What? One of the I think funniest moments in the show, and our show has had a lot of sexual innuendos, but I think this one takes the cake as far as the season goes. But all of this sexual tension between the two, and it's finally released, and according to Jack, it kills people. But What do we think about
it's fact? It's
for
facts.
for the shippers of the show, or people that care about the ships, if you will, for Joyce and Jonathan? How do we feel about this? It can always be it's a dangerous territory to go in for characters that kind of have this sexual tension. Sam and Diane, Ross and Rachel. It can be dangerous once you cross that line. What are your thoughts here with Nancy and Jonathan expressing their love for each other?
I can't wait until Jonathan's season 4 of we were on a break. That's why I got with Bob. Yeah,
the Radio Shack guy.
Exactly. I mean, you had a great deal on a JVC. I was satisfied personally because we got it really painted on thick in the previous episode, especially when they're showing each other their cool scars and they're sort of reminiscing and they're thinking on fonder times where they might have been. And even Nancy sort of points out, almost implies the fact that, hey, we could have gone together had it not been for you trying to recover from this traumatic incident in your life, which, Nance, you got to give him a little bit more time than that. I know the holidays are coming around, and that's where libidos fly, but still.
You gotta cuff. It's cuffing season. You gotta shack up for the winter.
But that being said, I was very happy when it came about just because it really did. The flames have really been stoked. And I think that, the way that Will was reacting was essentially every Nancy Jonathan fangirl squeeing when they finally came back together and kissed. But, Jay, you bring up a good point about the long-term connotations of this. I'll draw the parallel to another TV show. I don't know if you guys watched New Girl, but Nick and Jess hooked up in, season 2 of New Girl? And then season 3, they're like, okay, they're in a relationship. We don't know what to do with this. Let's break them up.
Yeah.
So I wonder, if they do end up with the two of them together, it's sort of a question of where do they go from there. But in the moment, I immensely enjoyed what it built to. And obviously, again, how was the pullout line compete with Brent Gelman, assumingly improving, dropping food off of his fork and missing completely. It was just a really fun scene.
I've always been one that says that when two main couples hook up, it usually kills the flow of the show. I've always had.
I know you have, but do you think they'll do it in this show where the plot's so quick, there's not a lot of time for that, or do you think it's? I think because
I don't think it will because they only have 8 or 9 episodes a season. Will there be some friction between Steve and Jonathan? There already is. So I will see. And plus, I think the fans. I think after season 1, I think we all wanted Jonathan and Nancy to hook up more than Steve and Nancy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But but now I like Steve a lot.
Yep.
But there's a really fun moment as well, speaking of Steve. I don't know if you guys noticed this, where they framed Murray's staircase in a way that, when Jonathan and Nancy finally sort of start embracing, there's a poster behind Jonathan that reads, "He's watching you." And obviously that's one of Murray's big conspiracy theory posters. But as Jack is alluding to, it might make reference to the fact that there is a third part of this equation. He's off right now walking, the railroad, trading hair tips. But he's going to be involved much sooner rather than later in all of this. And you got to do some explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, number 3 top moment, Steve hair secrets are revealed.
Farrah Fawcett
with, was it Fabergé? Jack, you had hair during this time. Do you know of these hair products?
I did, but I don't think I used Farrah Fawcett hair products.
Okay,
I don't believe so. I could be wrong, but I don't think I did. But I will say this: Steve was because Dustin was and Steve they were talking about how to get a girl, right?
Yeah.
And just let Dustin know that Steve's good at getting the girl. But is he good at keeping the girl?
Well, he said Nancy's different. She's special. These cheap tricks don't work on a special person like Nancy. So he did
Cheap
clarify
Tricks,
that.
Jonathan's favorite band, speaking of which.
Exactly. I want you to want me. Not anymore.
Oh.
But no, I think Steve's still in love with Nancy, and that'll be an issue down the line.
Yeah.
Hopefully Steve doesn't have it. Hopefully he doesn't have that bat with the nails when he meets Jonathan next time.
Well, that's the interesting thing is you get this love triangle where one of the parties is very vapid or two-dimensional or full of themselves, but Steve, and maybe just because of the actor, is just so genuine. Even in this scene where like he's admittedly giving some very douchey tips about like you got to make it look like you don't care and then they'll come to you. Like there's almost an earnestness in that like Steve doesn't know any better, and that's how he's sort of like found success, ironically enough. But it seems like Dustin's going to try to take Steve's advice, but he's going to miss out on the opportunity to possibly get with Max, considering that like Lucas pretty much swept her off of her feet, so to speak, while Dustin was trying to patiently wait it out and play it cool.
By being honest. Lucas was honest with Max. So
that's true.
That's true.
Different strategy.
Yes. Number 4, Lucas gets in touch with Dustin, Lucas's sister, stealing his He-Man. Lets him know that his friend has been trying to reach him. Another kind of little side character. I find Lucas's sister funny. Having a younger sister myself, 2 younger sisters that always, being a pain in my butt. Jack, you've had younger sisters as well that were a pain in yours. I found it funny.
My younger sisters were great. I don't know if they listen to this podcast. I don't.
But I find it fun. Colleen finds her annoying, but I thought it was fun.
She's supposed
I like
to be
it.
annoying.
And I like more moments of Lucas's family as well. Whether I think it was episode 5 that they were at the breakfast table.
Yeah.
We get this moment where Erica purposely like hangs up on Dustin, and this is how Lucas finds out about it. I like, again, getting more glimpses of the other 2 boys' home life just to sort of flesh out the world a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if we need a full Erica episode, but give me some more Erica. I'd be intrigued to see her work with Lucas a little more, especially if Max gets in the picture.
Yeah, agreed.
And for the people playing at home, Lucas's dad was reading a newspaper. It was something that used to be on your porch in the morning.
And now you just read your iPads and your iPhones, who's a what's it's.
But I can remember when you kids were young, and I'd have the paper out reading.
Yeah, exactly. You would ignore me, like, Dad, let's play. No, sorry, son, I got to read the sports section.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, you wanted to go up and have a catch, right?
Exactly. Dad, you want to have a catch? Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm really.
No, I got to get my Farrah Fawcett product in before I step out into the cold.
Did we adopt another kid? Who's this kid that wants to have a catch? I know it's not Jay.
You had more of a Mike's dad approach to parenting. No, I'm kidding. Number 5, Max and Lucas share a moment on top of the bus. So it seems definitely like Max and Lucas are forming a bond and a relationship here. We do get a little more of Max's backstory, but for you, Mike, it's still not enough. We still kind of need more here for Max.
This is more. This also feels like, I don't know. This also feels a little stereotypical for me, at least, of like, it's almost like Footloose. Like, here's the kid rolled into town. Granted, their family's not broken up at this point. I'm also still confused. I think one of the things that really drew Jack to like focus in on Max and her possible connections is that Billy told her like, "Oh, it's your fault we're here." Was it because they got married and decided to move to Indiana? But if so, how is that Max's fault at all? Max is not like setting them up personally. I mean, far be it from me to actually like try to put real thoughts in Billy's head, but it's a weird comment to keep going back to.
Well, maybe he's just a jerk, right? Or is that not enough? There maybe has to be a real reason.
We've talked about the last episode you mentioned is Billy a racist. And we had another scene where Lucas comes to her door, knocks on the door, and he says, "Don't let him see you. Get out of here." And then he goes around the back. So, is that a storyline, or is it just something that's just he doesn't want her mixing in with any of the locals or anything like that?
I don't know. It definitely. I mean, if he's being painted as a pure bad guy, sociopath, whatever, I don't know. I think it's tough not to draw those comparisons or illusions.
Yeah, right. But I did like this scene overall because I mean the Max actress did get like somewhat emotional as well, and like opening up a part of herself and giving this apology. I really liked especially the part of like, I know that Billy can be a jerk, and sometimes I know that I can be one too, but I don't want to be like him. I do feel like there's some depth in there. I just hope that we're able to explore it a little bit more. We got just like a little sneak peek. You know, I want to see the full feature, but I'm worrying that with only 3 episodes left and things ending on such a wackadoo moment at the end of episode 6, I don't know if we're ever going to have another moment for like Max to stop down and be like, so this is how I feel about my parents' relationship.
Or get a Max flashback in some way. All right, number 6, Adventures in Babysitting at the Junkyard. Again, I gotta love Steve. Like, you know, standing up here, just going out there to be the human bait, and the turn or the reveal that there's more than one Dart was pretty scary, and a pretty intense scene that where you kind of grip in the armrest, so to speak. But a great action kind of set piece in a familiar location.
Yeah. Couple things on this. First, I love Steve during all of this. You sort of said Adventures in Babysitting. Steve definitely taking on the babysitting role. But I also loved when Lucas and Dustin sort of have this conversation about how, like, you told Max about everything. Yeah, well, you lied to us about Dart. And then you have Steve interrupting by being like, hey, dickheads, how come the only one helping me out here is this random girl? It's just such a
funny line.
That was a really funny moment. But the interesting thing as well is that, like, at least from my opinion, I was sort of, I don't want to say I was happy to see that there were multiple darts. I believe that the internet term that they use for it is demodog, like Demogorgon, but dog, considering that these are like on 4 quadrupeds and they're basically running around like, Rottweilers. But it also sort of redeems Dustin, but at least doesn't make me feel like he screwed everything up because he kept Dart. You know, it seems like maybe it's because of all these holes that have been existing in Hawkins and the year in between, but it seems like there are a bunch more about, unless Dart was like undergoing some form of mitosis and was like rapidly replicating himself or splitting off from himself. It seems
Gremlin
like
style.
all of these things are just coming out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they are, you know, because we saw slugs coming out of Barb's mouth. All the people that the original Demogorgon got last year. If we assume that the larval Demogorgons that came out of the dead people's mouths, as well as Will's, eventually evolved or grew into these Demodogs. And I would assume they would continue to kind of develop into full-fledged Demogorgons. I don't think these are like different species, but I could be wrong. But yeah, no, I think that's a good call to make as well.
Unless maybe there's some sort of weird thing where like the Demogorgon is able to like absorb DNA, as weird as that sounds, and maybe it was like one of the Demogorgons like got some dog DNA. Maybe it was because it came from Will's house, and Will at some point, I don't think he does anymore, but he had a dog.
He did.
Maybe that's what turned it into like a Demodog. Maybe we'll see like maybe Dart is like a Democat. Maybe we can get all sorts of like weird animal-based Demogorgon creatures. I don't know. We've got 5 seasons to we already are finishing up 2. We've got 3 more seasons to sort of pump out as many characters in this mythos as possible. I'm just saying we might see a Democat sooner rather than later.
Connecting it to Aliens. That theory does connect to Alien 3, where the face hugger actually attaches to a dog, and the alien in Alien 3 is a dog alien, essentially. And another part of it is, in Alien, the first one, there's one alien, and in Aliens, there's like a crap ton of them. So that has to be another connection there beyond casting Paul Reiser. But the scene in the tunnels where all of the people kind of get ambushed and taken out definitely smacked of Aliens to me. Jack, what were you going to say?
I was going to say we didn't talk about the scene where Dustin lies to his mom about the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fake phone call. Again, Dustin is like developing like a little bit of a deceptive streak to him. I think it honestly really started in that moment where he sort of expounded to Mr. Clark about like the door of curiosity. Now it seems like he can really he's a regular con artist. He's just lying to everyone about everything.
Is Dustin going to go to the dark side? That's what I'm wondering, because
Dark Dustin.
Dark Dustin. But what happens when his mom gets to the place where he said Dustin was talking to, and he goes, "I never talked to Dustin." What's going to happen there?
I don't know.
Nothing? Is it the 80s? There's no repercussions? There's no...
I was going to say, considering these parents are still letting, Nancy go out of her room days after her best friend disappeared / got killed. Like, I think pretty much except for, isn't it the rule of thumb that, like, besides Joyce Byers, everyone else is kind of a doof in the adult world?
I would think so, yes.
And kind of 7, 8 kind of combined here. So Will, so Dr. Owen sends people to check out the spot that Will sent them to. He said he doesn't want people to see here. It's a weakness. So the envoy, this military envoy, gets there, and it's actually an ambush that spy Will, and he takes out everybody, and they rush towards Hawkins' lab. So a big kind of plot reveal. Will has been compromised, and every character that's at least in Hawkins' lab seems to be in big trouble. With the last scene in the episode, the claw of one of the demodogs like hitting the edge of the ravine there, the big hole.
Mm. Yeah, this was so good, and not just because I was right. I could rarely hear the scene over me just patting myself on my own back for 5 minutes, but this was just so, like you mentioned with the junkyard scene as well, just a really good action piece, and just in terms of tension, and then it keeps cutting back to Will as he like slowly reveals that yes, it's a trap. He was the one that sort of led them astray. I like them even a callback literally to like an episode prior, them going to that quote unquote graveyard where Hopper almost got swallowed up by the vines. It was just so well done. And as we talked about a myriad of times at the course of this podcast, really built up excitement and suspense, making you want to tune into that next episode.
Yeah. And making it really tough to stop.
Even Hopper says, wait, that's where I was at, when he sees the guys stepping on the bones and stuff like that. And it was like Mike goes to try to, hey, it's a trap. And of course, the guard's not letting him in. So anyway.
And I loved as well, like, obviously, we said the effects budget definitely got bumped. And I loved, the effect of the fog rolling in with the Demodogs. Just in case if there wasn't enough money, you could say that it was shrouded in fog. But I feel like my favorite moment was almost that radar system.
Yes.
Just watching all of those dots swarm in and then just take off. Again, it was such a really simple moment, but so representative of just the larger threat of the fact that, oh, yeah, now Hawkins' lab is working with everybody, but that still doesn't mean, it means bupkis.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to they're in for much larger stakes than they were last time around.
Well, if we remember in season 1, you had all those military people trying to take down the Demogorgon, and it could be shot like 1 billion times, and it didn't. I mean, it definitely got hurt, but it didn't stop it. And now you have, I didn't count how many of those red dots there were, but there was at least 20 some odd Demodogs, it seemed. They had like 7 people down there or something. And
Demodog dare you. So
this is a cool call out on the scene. I think it is another callback to Aliens. I think it had a similar type thing. I haven't seen in a while.
Why don't we just do a podcast on Aliens?
No, but I think they did have like a monitor system, and then they could see the alien coming up. And it was like right on top of them. They didn't know why, but it was actually in the ventilation or something like that. But still, really, really cool scene. Really cool close of the episode, and ending it on a very much like, I need to see the next episode.
Yeah. Question about Will. Sorry, about Will.
Go ahead.
Can he control? Like I said at the end, he says, "I'm sorry." He's talking to Mike. So at one point, he said he wanted me to do it, or whatever the exact words were. Sometimes he can control himself. Sometimes he can't. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask as well. Is like what we have this huge reveal at the end of the episode about the fact that Will is sort of being pulled in both directions, but it seems like the people of Hawkins, the human side, seems to be losing this proverbial tug of war. It seems like the Thessal Hydra, for one reason or another, is really starting to pull Will in. I don't know what exactly it is. This is also the first episode, I believe, that we saw these quote unquote now memories for the first time when we went inside Will's head. I'm assuming we'll see more of them to possibly reveal more about maybe what the Thessal Hydra's plan is. But I don't know. I'm really inclined to believe that Will's sort of a foregone conclusion at this point. But I could also see a total moment in episode 9 where like he's able to fight it temporarily to help save everyone, but at what cost? But I feel like for now he's definitively swung over to the dark side.
Yeah, I think he is, and they kind of referenced it too with him not knowing who Hopper and Bob was. Like he's losing more and more of his humanity. So something I guess will have to be done to stop that at some point, or we lose Will.
To be fair, Bob is kind of forgettable. So.
Oh,
What?
Come on!
That's Bob the Brain, Jack.
He's just jealous. He's jealous.
Well, you had Will, who's actually saved Hopper, right?
Sure.
But then he gets the other 5 people killed. So
Yeah, what and
you got to take the good with the bad.
And also, like, really nice pairing as well with, Hopper, who helped save Will. Now Will sort of paid it back in kind. The question is if Will is now sort of serving as the human vessel for the Thessal Hydra. I'm assuming now we're going to have, like, Will almost being its mouthpiece and speaking on behalf of it. I wonder if he'll take kindness upon Hopper, or if it really does become the fact that, what have you done for me lately?
Well, now going forward, are they going to be stupid enough to trust Will anymore?
No, I would hope not.
But that's the thing, though. That's where the fun wrinkle is the fact that, like, his mom is there and his best friend is there. Are they really going to be that quick to say, like, no, you know what? We should, like, abandon and kill my child.
Well,
I feel like there's going to
kill him, but not listen to him.
Yeah, but I feel like there's still going to be some fun conflicts in there because, like, now I feel like the Hawkins Lab people are going to push back even more on Owens and say, like, look, this kid is a danger. He literally led these 7 people to their deaths. We need to get rid of him. And now you have Joyce questioning, like, my son is a danger, but at the same time, he's my son. I think there's some really interesting emotional play in there, which I didn't initially expect.
I will say... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
And when they were we talked about the round table with the one guy was like saying, hey, if he dies, he dies. I mean, it just... I think, like you said, they're setting us up. Will have to be sacrificed in order to save the town.
So, do we think Will's going to be dead? Is this his?
No, I don't think this season.
Okay,
but
I could again going back to Harry Potter. Spoiler alert for Harry Potter. I could see a moment where, like, Will gets killed. That killed the part of the Thessal Hydra within him, and then he comes back again. He's Zombie Boy Part 2, and now he's fine, or is he?
Just think of the crap he's going to go through school now. I don't think he's got to be homeschooled at this point. I don't
know, exactly.
Oh man, maybe that's Bob's turn. He becomes Will's tutor at home.
Yeah, or they just move up to Maine and we get season 3 up in Maine, which would be a very, like, Stephen King Dreamcatcher with, like, snowy climate, or The Thing.
Yep. Or It was in Maine too.
I just think it would be awkward with Bob as tutor when Joyce and Hopper are dating.
No, that's when Steve comes over for a little bit of a study sesh, if you get my drift.
Oh God. All right, well, that's all we have to say about these two chapters.
Steve's in college now, so it's okay.
God.
Let's go to listener feedback. Probably the last time we'll have listener feedback. So this first one's in reference to spoiler-free episodes 3 and 4. Great podcast, great show in that order. Oh, thank you.
Right.
Love the combination of comedy, drama, scary that this has, and that is just the podcast. Oh, wow. I didn't know we had scary moments.
Those are Jack's theories.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Stranger Things production team is messing with the space-time continuum a little too much with their 80s references. At the beginning of episode 3, they reference a current show that takes place in the 80s on a current show that takes place in the 80s. Wait, I don't get what that means. Are they saying, like, a reference to a show that takes place not in the 80s? Or is it a typo?
Well, I think they're saying that, like, they're making wistful references to a show that's taking place at the time the show takes place.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's like when we acknowledge, like, Family Matters, like, it's fun because it was like 20 years ago. But if they're wistfully, expressing their nostalgia for a show that's currently on the air in that timeline, that might not play as well as I think what they're referring to.
Fair enough. But I will say, as a kid that weirdly idolized the 80s as like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old, I can say that there is that thing. I was the weird Ghostbusters kid in elementary school when it wasn't cool to be nerdy. So
yeah,
Jack
I can back
vouch
Jay
for
up.
me.
I can back.
When Dustin's mom asked if he was constipated, she was channeling her best Beverly Goldberg, the all-time greatest smother. That was funny. The space-time continuum might rip. That would release a Demogorgon for real, just saying. Crackpot theory, the box that 11 finds under the cabin is Hopper's dad's stuff. For when he did work at the lab, Hopper did say his dad used to live there.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say, but still had the folder of the stuff that he got with Terry Ives. Thanks for the show, and still working my way through the old Lost podcast. You guys have come a long way. Steven in Florida. Thank you, Steven. Very kind words.
Thanks,
Yeah. I think that theory would be cool, and I think it definitely would connect back to this idea of generations. Again, don't want to go back to Heroes, but that was a thing, right? Was that like a lot of the main characters had parents or ancestors that were like connected into this one big group that worked together into a little bit of a schism. The only thing is that I feel like Hopper would have known about that box, right? I think it was more so like, I believe in the flashback even, he's like, oh, this pace is pretty crappy. We gotta like pack everything up and, put it in safe, organized boxes. So I wonder if he just happened to have a bunch of Terry Ives research that he culled together in the year or so and just put it under that, under the floor in that very helpfully marked box.
Don't look here.
Yeah, I think it's more that because we saw him pull, what are those called again? The little slides with the newspapers. They have a name and I forgot.
Microfiche?
Microfilms.
I think Mike's right.
Anyways, but yeah. Good theories.
All
right, we got an email here from episodes 5 and 6, the ones we just talked about. Hey, Jay, Jack, and Mike, great job on your recap of episodes 3 and 4. I have a few comments for episodes 5 and 6, and then a suggestion. I'm leaning more towards Bob the Brain being okay. It was pretty awesome how he figured out the map of tunnels. I'm still not convinced about Dr. Paul Reiser. I have no clue what his character's name is. It's Dr. Owens, but I do understand. I can sympathize. That was heartbreaking about what happened to Elle's mother. Brenner was an a-hole and deserved to be devoured by the Demogorgon. Do we know that for sure? I hope he's truly dead. Dustin and Steve together is an awesome pairing. They both have the hair. Sorry, Jack. Poor Will, that boy has been through enough. It's time to get the gang together and fix this. But I hope that first those smarmy doctors that don't care about whether Will's life get eaten by the Demogorgons. And where did all those Demogorgons come from? Hopper is Hawkins Indiana Jones. Any thoughts on why Will doesn't remember Bob and almost seems scared of him? I broke down and watched the final 3 episodes after I wrote down these thoughts. I want to say anything then. I'm actually going to keep that off.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trap. Love Mike's Star Wars reference. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's the email. Any thoughts there?
I personally think that Brenner's dead. That might be me hopefully thinking, but I don't know. Why would they bring him back? How would they bring him back? What, did he just like move out of town because he was so embarrassed by the Demogorgon flattening him? I don't see any reason how they'd be able to bring him back.
Then why not show him get killed? They didn't show it explicitly.
Because maybe they were on their last dollar in terms of budget and they weren't able to show, like, because think about it. One of the things about like the Demogorgon and why it was so scary in that first season is because we didn't really actually see any gore. We didn't see it actually kill anybody. We didn't see Barb even get killed. I wonder if it was just a thing of like, it's scarier, it's more frightening when you make the image in your head rather than actually seeing it on screen.
True, that is true. But I would say, go ahead, Jack.
I think after the 5th episode, we don't need to see if Brenner. He is an a-hole. He's a bad man, and I think he got what he deserved. I think he is dead, and I agree with Mike. I don't think there's any reason to bring him back. Move the story forward.
Yeah.
Like I said, where did he go? I mean, is he hiding? Is he locked up in jail or something for a year or so? I'm good with him not being back.
I would agree, but I would also say we have to realize that there is a chance that he could come back because we didn't see him die.
Okay, all right.
And we can't be ticked off about it because we didn't see his body get made.
No.
How would he survive though?
I don't know. I'm just saying we didn't see it
and I reserve the right to be ticked off about it, even more so because we were saying why we gave a laundry list of reasons why they shouldn't have done that, only for them to do it anyway. And it's not like, once again going back to that Heroes well with that sweet water, what they did with Sylar made sense because Sylar was I would say like a fan favorite character, but he was like well enjoyed as a villain that the creators would say, oh yeah, let's bring back more Sylar. I don't think anyone was like, woo, Brenner. Yeah, I'm so sad that Brenner left. I needed more Brenner in my life.
Maybe they're going to bring Brenner back in the reboot of Heroes. Maybe we can do that.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait to see. Duffer Brothers.
Actually, if they do bring Brenner back, and can he do that thing he did and erase my memory of Heroes ever being around?
But yeah, you have our thoughts and opinions on bringing Dr. Brenner back here right now. You can do it right now before if he shows up in these last 2 episodes. Sorry, but you at least forewarned for next season and seasons future. To not bring him back, or you'll feel the wrath of the J. Jack and Mike crew.
You're 4 warned, you're 8 warned, you're 11 warned. We're just covering all of our numbers here.
Oh man! All right, well that's it for the listener feedback. We did get one, I think, for episode 9, so we'll save that for when we actually talk about those episodes. Gentlemen, any final thoughts here on these 2 chapters as we kind of get to go past this big cliffhanger?
I'm just looking forward to watching it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I know we say that every episode, but even if I think like the minor quibbles that we have, like again, I'm not sure how much they're going to develop Max's character more, but I've been so excited with how this season has gone so far, and I feel like the last couple of episodes especially really kicked everything up a notch, both in terms of action, in terms of combining the characters, in terms of romance. So I'm so excited to see. I'm assuming it's going to be such like a high octane finish over the course of 3 episodes. We have 3 hours to really, have everything build to a climax and then finally result in some falling action and denouement. So I'm so excited to do it and so excited to come back with you guys next week to talk through episodes 7 and 8 as we near that end.
Yes. So we are going to be doing 7 and 8 next week. And we decided to break off episode 9, the last episode, and then pair it with the Beyond Stranger Things. I believe there's 6 of those, like 30 minutes each.
Are there more previews I should watch?
No, but Jack, please at least watch these ones.
Oh, I will.
So we'll talk about the last episode as well as the Beyond Stranger Things the week after that. But it's tough. It's tough to follow up a show as beloved as season 1 of Stranger Things. But I will say, the show's not done yet. And besides minor nitpicks, and again, I didn't really watch the show critically season 1. I'm sure I could have nitpicks for those. But I have as well enjoyed Stranger Things 2 a lot and haven't been like, episode 1 hating it or anything like that.
Well, like we talked about, too, is like a guy like Steve, I could have cared less if they brought him back season 2, and now I love Steve.
Yeah.
So they've done some great, like I think Mike, you mentioned a couple episodes about Will being kind of a minor character, and now he's a major character. Or maybe the most important character.
It's interesting because, as you talked about before even the season started, they really build this as a sequel. You even said, Jay, just now that it was Stranger Things 2. And I feel like they're really doing what you're supposed to be doing in a sequel, which is not repeating yourself, possibly building out storylines and characters that we didn't get a lot of in the first season. You just talked about Steve, Jack. We talked about Will. Exploring some other dynamics as well, the Steve and Dustin thing. I know that we all absolutely loved and hope to see more of. And then sort of bringing in new characters that sort of make sense and also create new dynamics. I feel like as much as we may gripe a little bit about the purpose of these characters, I really enjoyed Max. I, of course, love Bob. I feel like Dr. Owens is coming to his own. Billy is sort of filling his purpose, which I think is for us to all dislike him. So I feel like as a pure sequel from either a movie or a TV perspective, it's absolutely knocking it out of the park.
Yeah. So actually, we kind of talked about Brenner. We don't need him back. So is Billy filling that void of just like a one-dimensional bad guy?
I think so. I think, even though Stranger Things is definitely trying to branch out, as we talked before in that meta moment, they're trying to be more original and less derivative. I do feel like still one of the tropes you can lean on, especially when it comes to 80s pop culture, is this one-dimensional bad guy, be it the teenage bully, the kid bully mouth breather, or the shady government figure. And I wonder if it's because our quote-unquote enemies, like Steve especially, have built out to be more humanized. They're worried, okay, we still need sort of a figure to turn our gaze against. I still don't know if it's necessary, especially in the looming picture of the Thessal Hydra and now the Demodogs. But if you needed something to sort of pave the way before that reveal happens, I guess Billy is adequate in that regard.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the podcast, about 5th or 6th episode, are we saying how much we like Billy now?
No, because even at the beginning, Steve, like he had more complexity, and from what I understand, like reading about kind of prep for season 2. Steve's character was supposed to be like Billy, but once they casted the role with the actor that plays him, they just really liked him as a person and really kind of wrote the character to kind of match the actor's personality. So I got to give kudos to the Duffer Brothers in seeing
being a nice guy saved Steve's career.
The story for that character, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, the actors who play, like, Malfoy and Harry Potter and Joffrey in Game of Thrones have gotten, like, some of them have retired from acting, but I feel like they haven't exactly had, like, a drought in their career afterwards. It's not necessarily that just because you play a character that gets hated. I feel like that almost draws more acclaim to you than sometimes when you're playing, like, the most lovable character on Earth.
Yep.
Well, I'm saying he's got a bigger role this season, I think, than he would have had as a bad guy. I mean,
definitely. He would not have gotten as much play. He wouldn't have done that thing with Dustin at all had production been so favorable towards him. But yeah,
it wouldn't have worked that because Steve was a jerk last season for the most part.
I mean, I'll make a bold prediction here. I think the season 2 finale might be the last time we see Billy. I don't see any scenario where, and maybe that means that unfortunately Max goes away too. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't really see how they're going to pull such a heel turn. Steve, they did a heel turn in the last couple of episodes, but Steve was also not shown as a racist. So I think it's going to be really tough to show the audience, like, hey, like, we like Billy now, or at least Billy has some redeeming qualities, unless he, like, decides to drive in and save Max. I'm pretty sure that he's filled his purpose and he's going to go.
Maybe they can save Max by character by killing off Billy. Maybe Bill.
That's pretty dark though too. I mean, considering how like rocked Nancy was by the Barb stuff, even at the beginning of this season, like I can't imagine how screwed up Max would be if her stepbrother died in some way, shape, or form.
But if he was like trying to kill her or something. I don't
think she cares that much.
According to Jack, Nancy,
they obviously don't get along.
No, hold on. Just according to Jack, Nancy needs to have sex with somebody again, and then Billy will be killed. Easy peasy.
Billy would be like this. Oh, wait, Nancy's having sex. Ah!
Even though, really, Jack, I'm sorry, you can blame these deaths on Will. Will's the one that, or at least allowed the shadow monster to trap them. There, go with that.
Mm-hmm. It's blame the kid.
Anyway, that will do it for this week's episode. Give us a call at 385-309-0311.
Calling time.
Once again, it's 385-309-0311. Calling time for questions, comments, and or theories. Send an email to strangerthingsjjm@gmail.com. strangerthingsjjm@gmail.com. If you want to, we're doing 7 and 8 next week, so if you want to write an email about episodes 7 and 8, please title that in the email. If you want to, if you're already ahead and you're binging it, that's fine. Just make sure you're classifying it in the title of the email. Some of you have already done it, so we'll have feedback for when we get to those episodes. But yeah, please feel free to give that feedback in. I want to thank the people that make this show possible, our patrons over at patreon.com/JandJack. We have over 150 patrons, all that contribute with $1 or more a month, and it helps make all of our shows possible, especially this one. I want to thank Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Richter, Molly the Millennial, and Ed the Letter Carrier for your contributions, and thank you to all of our patrons. You can find a list of every single one of them on JandJack.com. Click the Become a Patron link today. If you buy anything on Amazon, maybe it's the Farrah Fawcett's hairline, Jack. Maybe that can help you. I don't know.
She did have great hair.
JandJack.com/Amazon for all of your hair care needs. Check out our other shows. You can find them all at JandJack.com/iTunes. Talking about Dancing with the Stars this season with Jack, Cindy, and Heather. There is also Survivor with Jay, Jack, and Colleen. We're post-merge, which is a lot of fun. Always fun post-merge. And we have our perennial shows, the Ramblecast with Jay, Jack, Boston, Nick, and sometimes Matt. And also you have the broadcast. And I think there's another Owen and Brew's barbecue in the works. Maybe that'll drop this week. Mike, you podcast a bajillion podcasts a week. It is Survivor season. You have a lot of cool Survivor content. Where can people find you, good sir?
You can find me doing Survivor exit interviews on Parade Magazine, doing fun and game stuff with Survivor every week on the RHAP B&B, on Reality TV Wrap-Ups. I do SNL recaps on post-show recaps as well. I do The Hamster Factor, covering a movie that I've never seen and watching for the first time with AJ Mass. This week, we are doing The 10, which is a little-known David Wayne film from 2007 that was an anthology talking about the 10 Commandments, so be sure to listen to all my thoughts there. In general, just check out all the stuff I'm doing. I shill it out on @aMikeBloomType on Twitter.
Awesome. Sweet. That will do it for this week's episode, everyone. We'll see you next time. Hasta luego, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Perkins presents America, a great country. Reason number 11. Think about it. You can drop an envelope in a small box and someone will take it and deliver it clear across the country for just 47 cents. Come celebrate that American greatness with Perkins' new Great American Breakfast. 8 new creations from across this great land, like the California Avocado Benedict. California, almost 2,600 zip codes. How do they do it? The Great American Breakfast, now at Perkins. Click the banner on your screen to explore the menu.
This holiday, switch to Cricket Wireless and get a free 4G LTE smartphone with no annual contract. Cricket Wireless, something to smile about.
Requires number ported and service activation. Minimum $30 per month. Applies to ZTE Overture 3. First month service charge and in-store activation fee up to $25 due at sale. Tax and restrictions apply. One-time fees may apply. See store for details.